Hey guys, in this video we are going to create a means to weight our scores accordingly because you may not, the scores are great, but maybe you want to fit them into categories of sorts. So the way that I do this is that I'm going to create another sheet and I'm going to call this, I don't know, category weights. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get all of the relevant metrics on this page. So to do that, I can go to my data set. I created scores for all these metrics. I'm going to highlight them all in my table, right click, copy. Then I'm going to go to the category weights page that we just created, and I'll go down here and I'll right click and transpose. That's just going to list out all my scores. And now maybe I don't wrap the text so I can see what's going on, and maybe I make it full size. I'm going to call this metric weightings, because we'll also have category weightings if we want to create an overall score of sorts. So this is kind of where we decide what weights we want to apply to each metric. So we'll call this weight, and we'll call this category, and we can assign each of our metrics to a category. This is more for organizational purposes for us, but score CMJ best, for example, that's power in my categories. I'm going to copy this, so are Wingate relative peak power and broad jump max. And for pull-ups, I'm going to call that strength. And I'm going to copy this, and that applies to TBDL 1RM and ISO leg press average. And now I'll just call this cond for conditioning, VO2 max all the way through body fat percent. Oops, I'll just paste it. And then we have sprint, or speed, with 10-meter sprints and the on-ice sprints. And then I'm just going to call this, I don't know, screen, because they're like screening variables. I don't know. You can call it whatever you want, as long as it makes sense to you. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 categories that'll have scores. And now in this column, I'm going to put in the weights that I want for each metric within a category to apply for that category. An example would be, maybe I think that Wingate relative peak power is not as important as CMJ best and broad jump max. I might say this is worth 0.25 or 0.3, and let's make these two, I don't know what the difference is, 100 or 1 minus those. So 0.35, 0.35. Now in our score, what this is saying is that 35% of the CMJ best score will go into our overall power score, and 35% of the broad jump max will go into the overall power score, and only 30% of the Wingate score will go into it. And it'll equal a number between 0 and 100, depending on the scores that exist here. So I'm going to go back in here, and I'm just going to apply these. I don't really know what to use, but I'll go 0.33, 0.33, 0.33. No, that's usually not good because I want to equal, I'll go 0.2, 0.6, 0.2. The important thing here is that these numbers have to add up to 100 if you want the score to be at a 100. Or, sorry, these scores have to be equal to 1 if you want the score to be at a 100, and we'll treat them as percentages. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 categories. Yeah, I don't really know. Or, well, on-ice stuff might be more important than the other stuff. So 0.5, and I don't really care about Wingate relative power, but I want it to be represented a little bit. 0.6, let's say 0.8, and there's 100. We can quickly kind of go through this too if we want, where if this is easy for you, we can kind of highlight these things. I didn't mean to do that, I meant to do some. And then we'll know within each of these categories if we're adding up to 100 or not. I'll probably remove this, but it's just it's a check. And now speed, maybe that's 0.1, 0.1, 0.4 because it's on ice, 0.4. If that's what we care about. Copy this and I'll paste it down, make sure it's going over the right cells. Now the last one, a screen. Well, strength differences are important to me. So I'll go 0.3, and composite score difference is more important than the others, 0.2. Maybe the actual distance that they reach is, I'm just going to see what this adds up to, honestly. Here, I'm just going to, it's easier to do this at the beginning so that you know what things add up to as you're going through it. It might help guide you. 0.7, all right, so it works out that each is 0.1 after that. Oops. 1, 0.1, and 0.1. Now, we have scores for each of these categories if we want to use them. We'll have to create them in our table, which is fine. But before we do that, let's copy this and let's paste this kind of over here, and let's call this category weightings. I don't know. Yeah, I did spell that right, I think. All right. Now we have our categories: power, strength, con, speed, screen. This is for our overall score. If we want to have an overall score that encapsulates all these things to the percentages in which they exist. So maybe in general, I care about, like in ice hockey, maybe I care about speed and power more than other things. And maybe my least significant concern is strength. So maybe power is 0.2, and we can do the same thing that we did here if we want. I'll paste it up here. It's not consistent, but we'll go G3 to G7, I think. Okay. Wait, that's it. Oh, H. My bad. So for strength, maybe that's 0.1. Maybe speed is 0.3. Or let's make this 0.25, 0.35, who knows, 0.15 and 0.15, who knows. Now, what this is saying is that whatever score this results in, which is going to be a number between 0 and 100, 25% of that score will go into the overall score. And only 10% of the strength score is going to go into the overall score. So someone could get a 100 for strength. They could perform amazing on all these tests, not perform well on power, and have a very low overall score because the contribution of strength to that overall score is low. So I hope this makes sense. And once you have this set up, we can start getting into the data side of things, and we'll do that in the next video.